Hello and welcome to this video on what is perhaps the oldest question in the world. Why do bad things happen to good people? Related questions are, why do bad people prosper? Why do innocent children have to suffer and die? How could God be so cruel? Why is life so unfair? When you're in the midst of suffering and grief, no explanation can even begin to soothe your pain. Only time can heal it. Still, the answer is desperately sought. When I was growing up, the only answer to these questions I ever got was, it's impossible to know why. For me, that was not an answer at all. I was sure that life had to make sense somehow. I started by observing my own experience, because that was all I had to go on. In my experience, life always seemed to be what I made of it. If I treated people fairly and kindly, it tended to deal me a fair hand, even a generous hand. This outlook seemed both logical and practical. However, I could see I had both excesses and deficiencies in my character. For instance, I tended to take excessive risk, quite willing to ignore the torpedoes and go full speed ahead, with only the most rudimentary planning. Thus I was deficient in forethought, and the patience to wait for the right timing. The hardships that naturally resulted, especially when they really hurt, eventually taught me the discipline to think ahead more thoroughly and not be quite so reckless next time around, if I could help it. A well-known banker was once asked the secret of his success. Good decisions, he said. Asked how he learned to make them, his answer was, bad decisions. Believe me, I've made more than my fair share. Hardship resulting from our bad decisions is how we learn. Without it, I doubt we learned much. I know I wasn't motivated to learn just a whole lot when life was easy. If there's something I want, the measure of its true cost is how much it hurts to get it. Every dollar could be thought of as a unit of pain. Pain is the currency of anything we want to gain, from material things to spiritual things. I've learned to ask myself, is it worth the pain? I find that spiritual gains are always worth the pain because they bring greater joy and freedom. But with material gains, I find it pays to be choosy. Beyond earning my keep, I'm content to let most of them go and not waste my time. But if I find something well worth the risk, I find it's best to take the pain in small, controlled doses, not all at once. For me, this means doing long, patient, diligent research to get the very best bang for my buck. Meanwhile, I accumulate my capital, those wonderful little units of pain that are easy to bear only in small doses. This may take years, but when the time is right, I'm fully prepared, and I enjoy a very satisfying transaction. Like paper money, pain has no value in itself, but it has strong purchasing power. Whenever we undergo pain and hardship, we're learning hard and bitter lessons. The more severe the pain we bear, the more bitter the lesson. As evil as it may seem, this bitterness is of supreme importance to our spiritual development. Only the deepest bitterness has the power to drive an important lesson all the way home to the innermost recesses of our hearts. Only when this happens are we finally willing to resolve to never again do what caused ourselves so much pain. Great pain teaches even more. It's taught me things of immense spiritual value, including compassion, absolute patience, and detachment from any desired outcome. It's even taken away the fear of pain. I believe it's possible that pain might be its own cure. Let's have a look at what the teachings of Eckankar, the path of spiritual freedom, say about why we're here to suffer life in all its apparent unfairness. This video is not sponsored by Eckankar, but you can find a treasure trove of info at the link below that you won't find anywhere else. The very first thing we learn in Eckankar is that we are soul, a spark of God. This means we are spiritual beings made from the fabric of God. Our physical bodies are just temporary shelters while we're here on earth. When our bodies die, we live on. We exist because God loves us. We were literally loved into being. However, we were totally selfish creatures, only serving our own purposes. So God created the lower worlds of duality to help us eventually learn to love like God does and serve all of life. God willed that soul have every possible experience for its education. This takes many lifetimes of suffering caused by our own foolish and self-indulgent ways. The lower worlds are governed by the negative force that rules with the iron law of karma, which takes an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, where everything must be paid for in the true coin. This law guarantees exact justice for all. It ensures that no one gets a free lunch, despite our best efforts. This is the only way that soul can become a spiritually mature, self-reliant being, and eventually a co-worker with God. In the light of this doctrine, we can see that everything we experience, both good and evil, is of our own making. We are truly the creators of our own lives. Why do bad things happen to good people? For the vast majority of cases, the reason is karma. Though someone may have been very good lately, a past debt to life can unexpectedly come due. They experience a sudden reversal in fortune which can be very hard to bear. This serves as payment. Bad karma may appear to be caused by bad people or be seen as God's cruel judgment. However, we can be assured it is absolutely fair down to the very last grain. It isn't punishment, but a means of spiritual education. When something like this happens, instead of blaming others or blaming God, it helps to be grateful that a great debt from the past is finally being paid. Even a celebration could be in order. After all, it's just one less thing to be afraid of. If I get wind of bad tidings in my own life, I know it's for the good, so what do? I go out for dinner or do something special. The torpedoes of life aren't nearly so scary when you celebrate them. Karma isn't all bad. Half of it is good. Moreover, good karma contains the seeds of corruption, and bad karma contains the seeds of renewal. When someone wins a substantial amount in a will or a lottery, or rockets to fame and fortune in some enterprise, it's mainly because this was a credit that came due, even if they appear to be not so good people. They then have to worry about how they're going to keep and safeguard their fortune, a serious challenge in its own right. We build a foundation for good times during our bleakest hours. And during good times, well, we tend to let things slide, don't we? And then we wonder why we fall upon hard times. There isn't just individual karma to deal with. There's family karma, community karma, gender karma, race karma, national karma, and world karma. Animals and plants also have karma because, believe it or not, they are soul too. You name it, there's a karmic equation for it. The balance of karma is the secret foundation of all math and science. One day science might discover karma. I'll have a good chuckle then. However, there are other possible reasons for bad things happening to good people besides karma. They have to do with love and compassion. There's a story of a father who taught his young daughter about karma, how it's a harvest of what she sows in life, and how her current life is what she'd earned in past lives. They both liked to volunteer at a local animal shelter. One day some dogs were rescued who'd suffered terribly from very cruel treatment. The daughter was heartbroken at their piteous condition. What could these dogs have possibly done to deserve this, she cried. Her dad was equally mystified. So they wrote Harold Clem, the spiritual leader of Eckankar. In his answer, he explained that it's not always about karma. A soul may choose to undergo such an experience because they want to learn greater compassion for others who've undergone similar treatment. Some animals are actually further along in their spiritual unfoldment than many humans. We all come into life with important spiritual goals. Unfortunately, they usually get ignored, so we have to come again for another try. In Eckankar, we learn to successfully accomplish our spiritual goals so that we can be free to choose whether we want to come back to Earth or not, and in what capacity. Sometimes spiritually very advanced people, those who have become co-workers with God, will temporarily take on the karmic debt of someone they dearly love, if it will help them overcome a difficult spiritual hurdle. They have the spiritual strength and fortitude to weather such misfortune with cheerful aplomb. The soul they help then owes them a debt of love. A debt of love is not karma, but a gift. It's something one is happy to pass along as gifts of love to others, out of a deep and humble gratitude for the gift of God's love that's been so freely showered upon them. I hope this gives you some helpful new perspectives on this ancient, troubling question. I'd like to show you a way that can help to resolve any troubling question of life. It's called the Hue, a love song to God. You sing it with a deep breath like this. Hue. Sing it any time you feel afraid or troubled about anything. Sing it with love. It can give you strength, acceptance, understanding, and peace of heart. Thank you for watching.